Hello, welcome back. So today I've got 5 products to review. I'm going to talk you through all of them, hopefully in an acceptable level of detail. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you in the next segments. So I want to start the video by talking about the Ghostglides Nylon 66 skates. And these are a new release by Ghostglides, released in the last couple of weeks. And it's an 8mm wide dot. So to give you a demonstration of what a 6mm dot is on this side, compared to the 8mm on this side. And there's a couple of sort of gotchas that you need to be aware of with this dot if you're planning to buy them. So because this material is nylon, the way they manufacture it has impacted the depth of the dot. So it's not quite as deep as normal sort of standard dots would be. And the impact of that means basically you need to be really careful what mouse you plan to use them on. So I've been using them really successfully on my Vaxi mice, and you can see, hopefully on the screen now, the mouse feet area for this mouse is quite shallow. So the dots have a chance, with their reduced depth, to poke out the top and perform well as mouse feet. Whereas when I try to use them on my Pulsar X2H, the mouse foot area is a lot deeper, and the mouse skates, the Nylon 66s, kind of struggled to poke out the top. Although they did, I could use them on hard pads. I couldn't use them on cloth pads because there wasn't enough poking out the top to prevent that base rubbing on the pad, which is never a nice experience. Another thing I want to touch on very briefly, because there is a depth concern there, I understand that, is that there were no lift-off distance issues and there was no sense tracking issues that I experienced with these dots. So how do they perform then? So these dots I've found perform really, really well for how I like to play. So they are extremely smooth on my Ghostglides Courage pad, and they've been really smooth on all of the pads I've used, but they also have a bit of extra bite at the end of their swipes. It almost feels like it comes to an assisted stop. And this makes the dots feel really good for flicking exercises because you get none of that PTFE wriggle at the end of your flicks. The glide speed is much slower than the Ghostglide Edge Runners, but it is faster than the Vortexes, which is their really controlled option. The stopping power and initial friction also sit neatly between the Vortexes and the Edge Runners, so it's kind of an in-betweeny option. If the Vortexes are too slow and the Edge Runners are too fast, then the Nylon 66s are right up your street. The stickiness you feel at the end of your swipes is also there at the start of your movements too, and I quite like it, but I know it won't be everyone's cup of tea. For me, it helps to keep my aim a little more consistent by reducing that wriggle that I've already mentioned. So the Nylon 66 dots are a really unique option in the market, and I really love the size, if I'm honest with you. I wish Ghostglides released their entire range in 8mm. So Nylon 66 dots are actually slightly more controlled compared to pure PTFE, but not too controlled that they feel restrictive. And I definitely recommend you try them if you have a mouse that's compatible, bearing in mind the depth. We're going to talk now about the Ghostglides Second Skin sleeve, which also is a recent release. And I've got 2 sizes here. I've got the large and the extra large, and then I've got the small and the medium actually on my arm. Small medium feels very snug, literally as advertised, a second skin. And the large and the extra large feels a bit baggy by comparison. So to help you make that decision in terms of what size you need, I'll just put my arm measurements up on screen now, and then you can make that judgment, hopefully based off my experience, which one is best to buy for you. In my experience, this sleeve is much better when it fits nice and tight to your skin. And I quite like to pull my sleeves up over the fleshy parts of my palm. So I like to cover this bit so that when I'm on my hard surfaces, I don't have too much drag from my palm itself. And on this sleeve, that works pretty well for me. It's quite snug, it's quite tight, and it doesn't keep slipping down when I'm on a hard pad. And it's nice and comfortable. I still get a lot of contact with my palm and the back of the mouse. So it works really well in that regard. So I do want to mention that the material composition of this sleeve is a 90-10 split, which is not as stretchy as I would usually use, but it does feel nice and cool on my skin. The surface is silky smooth, and I've really enjoyed the design of this sleeve in recent weeks. The packaging is also top tier, and you can use this after you've unboxed your sleeve to basically hold some of your mouse sort of peripherals in. So if you've got additional skates knocking around, this is a really good sort of bag to just kind of put those in and keep them all in one location. It's a really nice premium touch from Ghostglides, and they always go that extra mile, which you love to see. I do honestly think this sleeve is a pretty good option for you, particularly if you want a sleeve with a nice design that fits flush to your skin. It's not anything particularly new or innovative, but it is very comfortable and it's very cool. So this next product doesn't seem to be an obvious fit for the gaming peripheral scene, but the Magtame USB cable has honestly changed my setup in such a simple and profound way. The main feature of this cable is that it has a magnetic sleeve wrapped around it, which allows you to keep it tidy with minimal effort, simply by making it into a spiral. You know, it has this almost memory effect, so if you make a spiral with it and then use it, when you put it back, it'll coil up tightly again. And I love this specific feature for my specific setup. So because I have a laptop on a stand that kind of hovers over my desk, I typically have a lot of USB cables dangling all over the place, and they'd often get in the way and be quite untidy. So now with the Magtame USB cable, I use these for my 4K dongles. And when I plug it in, I rest the end of it on my desk, and the excess cable length coils up into a neat little spiral without any effort from me at all. It's really tidy, and I genuinely love this product. I'm not even joking. If, like me, you were concerned about the magnet damaging your peripherals, I have tested this on my phone screen, I've tested it on my computer screen and everything, and basically there's no impact to any of the devices around it because the magnet is quite weak, but it is strong enough to do this, which is great. So you don't have to worry about resting this on your phone screen because it will have no impact whatsoever. Overall, I think this product is an absolute banger, and although I've only spoken about this in one specific use case, you can imagine how managing this in your work bag compared to a normal USB cable is preferable. You know, if you're trying to keep a tidy work bag and you don't want a lot of mess hanging around, having this just coiled up tightly so you can charge your phone up in maybe a battery bank or something is just a massive win. So I do have an affiliate code for this one. I'll leave those details down below. It's code LogPile at checkout. And if you fancy it, that will support me, and using that code will give you a discount. So I want to talk now about the G Wolves HATI R. And this mouse weighs 28 grams. You know, it's a really small mouse, which is only really usable in fingertip for me because no matter how far I put it back, it doesn't make contact with my hand at all. This mouse has really nice and light clicks, which complements the overall weight really nicely. And an issue I had with the G Wolves HSK Pro is that although it was feather light, the clicks were fairly stiff by comparison, which occasionally served to knock your cursor off target. So with the HATI R, this is no longer an issue, and this is a massive improvement. The scroll wheel feels really nice. You know, it's nice and defined. It's not too stiff to press either. And the build quality feels really good, you know, which is impressive given the weight of this mouse. So the biggest issue I have with the physical mouse is the back side button. So the back side button sits where the mouse kind of tapers off towards the back. So it kind of sits in this taper, which makes it a little bit harder to reach and to actuate with my thumb in use. Although with a bit of practice, I've got used to it and it doesn't really impact me in my games anymore. But when I got it, I found it quite difficult, and I had to learn how to use it. Basically, it wasn't an intuitive spot to use. The mouse feels a lot bigger in the hand than the HSK Pro, and the HSK Pro kind of tapers off towards the front, so it's like a wedge of cheese basically. And the HATI R, by comparison, has quite flat and straight sides from where my thumb and my finger are to the front, and this is kind of the area that you would grip the mouse. The taper just sort of serves to add a bit of stability towards the back because of its sort of extra length, and this fixes another issue I experienced with the HSK Pro in that it was a great mouse and I mained it for a long time, but it was so small and squat and square that it had very limited stability. And they've kind of fixed this now with the HATI R by making it a little bit longer and, you know, the same weight, which is insane really when you think about it. So I've experimented with the HATI R with a 1-2-2 grip and a 1-3-1 grip, and I found both grips to work really well. I've been really enjoying the experience that this mouse offers overall. The HATI R feels like a really good upgrade to the HSK Pro in my opinion, but I do think it's overpriced. So for future releases, I'd like to see G Wolves reduce the amount of stuff they put in the box, and I'd love for them to reduce the price to at least come in line with other premium brands. You know, they're charging upwards of £150 for the standard version of the HATI R. So for G Wolves to be charging more than Vaxi and Zowie charge for their flagship mice is absurd, in my opinion, particularly with G Wolves' reputation, bad customer support. So you will need to consider that before you buy this product. All of that said, it does feel pretty good to use, and I've really enjoyed it. So if you do decide to pull the trigger on the G Wolves mouse, with all of those caveats aside, please consider using my code LogPile again at checkout, and it will give you a small discount and help to support me in my channel. I was also going to talk a bit about my favourite fingertip mouse, the Precision Gaming Gear Titan 1, but I want to do it justice in its own full review. So stick around for that one in the next week or so. This thing is on another level of engineering, and I absolutely love it. So we're going to talk now about the SoSpacer Shape Shift kit and how it compares to the Struth Gaming Clawmate mouse modification. I actually really like both of these mouse modification kits, and for very different reasons. So the Shape Shift kit is a really refined product. You know, it's undeniably premium, and it offers a good few shape options for you to explore on all of your mice. And in the box, you get 6 different silicone molds. They're sat on top of this strong adhesive tape. You can see on the bottom, it's black. On the top, it's red. The black is this removable tape that kind of sticks to the mold and then sticks to the mouse. And it sticks pretty well. You know, I've taken these on and off a few times, and they still stick really nicely to my mice. You also get a second set of tape in the box, which is great to see. So the molds you have access to in this set are extremely well made, and despite looking quite similar, they offer very distinctly different experiences. So there are 2 aggressive claw grip kind of molds. One of them is more aggressive than the other in its profile. Hopefully I'll find a way to show you that on the screen now. You get a relaxed claw kind of finger shelf option too. And then you get this big width expanding kind of chunky boy, which is one of my favorites to experiment with actually. Not a particularly interesting shape, but it just adds a lot of width and size to the side of your mouse, which for most of us with big hands is really what we're looking for. And then for the thumb side of the mouse, you have 2 options, you know, one with a sort of hump or contact point near the front of the mold, and the other with a hump a little further back, and therefore it's more relaxed. The shapes on offer here are really nice and they work pretty well, but for me, I don't actually find myself using them. And that's because the ShapeShift modifications are designed to adjust and amplify the shape of your mice. And my personal preference is to use a mouse that's just the right size and shape for me straight out of the box, not to rely too heavily on modifications to provide that shape that may be lacking. And I definitely appreciate that I'm in a privileged position to have lots of mice, and not everyone has found that mouse that works well for them yet. So I do appreciate that. So in addition to that general observation, I personally feel like the ShapeShift molds are quite restrictive in how you can use them because they're all very long. And as a result of the length of the molds, you don't really have too many options for how you can use them on the side of the mouse, because if you angle them too much, the back of the mold might dig into the mouse pad, or the top will extend beyond the sidewalls of the mouse. I'll demo that quickly for you now on my G303 here. So let's say I want to use the aggressive claw grip option. And if I hold the mouse and I put my finger where I'd like it to go, what I'd do is I would just butt this mold up against my finger in that position, stick it on, and that's kind of where I would want that mold to be. However, as you can see, because it's so long, it's poking out below the mouse, and that's literally unusable in this position. So for this mold specifically, I'm forced then to adjust it to make it fit on the side of the mouse, which wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't this long. You know, if this was half the width, or half the length, sorry, you wouldn't have that back bit poking out and poking into the mouse pad. So the strength of these molds is that they offer you really good shapes to add to your mouse, but they don't offer you a great experience in terms of the versatility that you might get from a different product. enter the Clawmates. So I'll demonstrate this now on a different mouse. So if I use my my OP1, let's just say I want to put that one there, and I want my finger on the end to be supported by another one at the top. An issue that you have is, again, because they're so big, that it's very difficult to be comfortable with these on the side of the mouse. You know, although that doesn't feel terrible, it feels a little bit busy on this side of the mouse. And I'd like to feel fully comfortable if I'm investing in a mouse modification. And again, you can see if they just removed this bit of the top mold, then there would be a lot of space there. It would feel much less busy on that side of the mouse. And I don't see a reason really why this needs to be as long as it is. And that's my main criticism of these modifications, is that they're restrictive. The way that they're designed is brilliant, other than the length of them being restrictive and how you can apply them to your mouse. You know, and this is where we talk now about basically the polar opposite product, you know, the Struth gaming gear Clawmates, which is about as simple a mouse modification as they come. You know, the Clawmates are literally a triangular piece of silicone that sits on top of some double-sided tape. There's nothing that you couldn't make at home if you didn't have the materials to do so, but Struth sells them as a product on his website. There's no bells and whistles with the Clawmate modification, but they're extremely versatile, and due to the smaller form factor, offer literally unlimited flexibility in terms of how you apply them to your mice. The Clawmates don't replace the shape of your mouse in the same way like the ShapeShift set does. They just help my fingers stay fixed in place on the side of it. So to demonstrate that again on a G303, which is where I use the Clawmate, day-to-day use, I put my finger where I want it to go. I just butt it up against my finger, and then we're done. You know, there's nothing dragging on the base of the mouse pad. It's very easy to apply, to remove, to reuse elsewhere, and that's essentially done. I don't have to worry about that modification dragging anywhere or being too big, you know, bigger than it needs to be. And I can also, if I want to, apply a second one just in front for my other finger. And it doesn't feel particularly busy on that side of the mouse in the same way that the SoSpacer ShapeShift set do, because these are a lot smaller in their profile in terms of length, and therefore you can apply them in a more versatile way to the side of your mouse. So the short version of this comparison is that the ShapeShift set is genuinely a great product, and I can fully recommend them for someone that has a mouse shape that they don't currently enjoy and don't want to invest in a full new mouse, because let's face it, mice are expensive. So the ShapeShift mod may well make that shape work for you. And I really love the product. I see its value and place on the market. It's just not for me. And I hope that with some small adjustments going forward, SoSpacer will release a new version with less length in the molds to give them more versatility for future releases. In my opinion, the Clawmates shine if you are already pretty close to having your ideal mouse shape. They can help to relax your grip and give you a really locked-in feeling at the same time. So while I personally prefer the Clawmate modification, and I do actually use it, I do think its simplicity is both its strength and its weakness. I feel that most people would look at the product and feel like they're investing in something they could make at home themselves, whereas the SoSpacers are a little more refined and therefore harder to replicate at home. So if the Clawmates offer a more sandboxy modification experience, you know, the ShapeShift offers a more linear modification experience. Both have their place, but I feel they have very different target audiences and use cases. So I have already done a video showing how the Clawmates work and how I use them, and that will also be linked below, and so will my affiliate codes and links to Struth Gaming's website. So if you want to try them for yourselves, those details will be down in the description. So that's the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed that one, and I'll catch you in a future update. Peace out, ballers.